gigantic monster appeared on Earth, towering into the clouds, hundreds of meters tall. Its colossal body shook the ground with every step, sending thunderous booms echoing across the land. However, that wasn't the most terrifying part. Along with the monster came countless swarms of insects, and no one knew what fate awaited humanity. A sudden catastrophe ravaged the city into ruins as countless meteorites crashed down, slamming into streets and skyscrapers alike. At first, people thought it was just an accident, but as rescue efforts were about to begin, something strange happened. A horde of bizarre creatures suddenly emerged throughout the city. They attacked anyone they saw, tearing through the streets in a frenzy of destruction. In Washington, D.C., Mark, who had been caught in the meteor impact, woke up in a deep crater. Dazed, he recalled what had happened just minutes earlier. He had been on his way to a farm outside the city to promote his company's new brand of fertilizer, but as he passed through the intersection, a fireball suddenly streaked across the sky. Before Mark could even understand what was happening, a deafening explosion erupted beside him, and the ground collapsed. At that moment, a sharp pain shot through his arm. When he turned to look, he realized his arm was pinned under a pile of rubble. He tried to push the rocks away, but they were wedged too tightly to move. He shouted for help, calling again and again, yet no one passed by above. Though anxious, Mark forced himself to stay calm. He looked around, searching for anything that might help him escape. Not far away, he spotted a steel rod and reached for it. To his surprise, it was only stuck between two stones, and he easily managed to pull it free. Just then, he noticed his phone lying not far away. He hooked it closer and tried to call for help, but when he dialed the police, the line was busy. Mark guessed that the city had already fallen into chaos and that the police were busy carrying out rescue operations. He then called his wife, hoping she could come rescue him, but her phone was turned off. At that moment, a strange rumbling sound came from above the pit, as if something was moving. Mark thought a rescue team had arrived, so he shouted for them to find him. But after yelling for a long time, no one appeared. With no other choice, Mark decided to save himself. He turned on his flashlight and examined the situation inside the tunnel. The collapse had exposed an underground sewer network, surrounded by broken debris. That was when Mark noticed a strange tunnel behind him. But how could there be a tunnel inside the city's drainage system? He suspected that the collapse might be related to this tunnel, perhaps dug by someone and causing the ground to cave in. Although frustrated by his bad luck, now was not the time to dwell on it. He turned on his phone and left a voice message for his wife describing his location in case she could later alert the authorities. Just then, a helicopter appeared in the sky. But before Mark could feel relieved, it suddenly spiraled down and crashed nearby. A sense of dread filled him. He was too close to the crash site. If the wreck exploded, he could be caught in it. Enduring the pain, he used the steel rod to pry away the rocks trapping his arm. At that moment, a vehicle slid down into the pit from above. When Mark opened his eyes again, the tunnel behind him had already been sealed off by falling debris. During his escape, a shard of glass cut into his abdomen. He immediately pulled it out. Luckily, it was only a shallow wound. After regaining his composure, Mark took a lighter from his pocket. He walked back to the collapsed entrance and saw that it was completely blocked. With no other way out, he turned toward the tunnel. Thankfully, this end was still open. He walked a while to see if there was another exit ahead, but even after traveling deep into the tunnel, he still couldn't find the end. At that moment, he noticed red liquid smeared on the stone wall. When he touched it, he realized it was fresh blood. The blood hadn't dried yet, which meant someone had just passed through here. Mark guessed that there might still be other survivors in the tunnel. This thought gave him a glimmer of hope. As he moved farther ahead, he found a backpack beside a pile of rubble. Inside were some water, medicine, and a camera with night vision. Mark turned on the camera to scout the tunnel, and when he aimed it toward the passage ahead, he was shocked to see a person lying not far away. Mark rushed forward, and at a corner he found a woman. Seeing her leaning motionless against the wall, he touched her arm and noticed her body was still warm. She had only fainted and wasn't dead. He tried to wake her up. Looking at the frightened woman, Mark thought she was just scared. He told her to stay calm and assured her that he wasn't a bad person. With his comforting words, the panicked woman gradually calmed down. He wanted to ask what had happened, but suddenly, the ground around them began to tremble. Sand and dirt fell from above, forcing Mark to shut his eyes. Fortunately, the shaking lasted only a few seconds and didn't cause any real damage. Just as Mark turned to check on the woman, he was stunned to find that she had disappeared. He crawled forward and saw the woman had already run ahead, gesturing for him to stay silent. Confused by her strange behavior, Mark looked back, but there was nothing behind him. Noticing a cut on her thigh, he took off his belt and helped her bandage the wound. During their brief conversation, Mark learned that the woman's name was Kate. He assumed Kate, like him, had fallen into that pit when an earthquake caused the collapse. But Kate told him that the collapse wasn't caused by an earthquake, but by a group of monsters. Before she could finish her sentence, a strange growl echoed through the tunnel. But when Mark turned around, there was nothing behind him. Before he could figure out what was going on, Kate quickly blew out the lighter. Mark tried to turn on his flashlight, but Kate stopped him. In the darkness, Mark could faintly hear breathing behind him. He lifted the camera to see what was in the tunnel, but when the lens swept across the passage, there was still nothing there. Frustrated, Mark turned to ask Kate what was happening, but she had vanished again. Mark didn't dare to stay put. He hurried to chase after her. He wanted to ask more about the monster, but Kate said she had never actually seen it herself. But both her brother and sister had been taken by the creature. She only caught a vague glimpse of it, seeing that the monster had long, twisting tentacles. Just then, the tunnel echoed again with the monster's terrifying roar. Although the darkness behind them was absolute, Mark could clearly feel something lurking there. He quickly grabbed the camera, and through the lens, Mark finally saw the monster Kate had described.
Is that?
The image was blurry, but he could tell from the flashing screen that the creature was enormous. They dared not make a sound and remained frozen where they stood. Strangely, the monster clearly saw them, yet it didn't come closer. After a tense silence, the heavy breathing stopped. The creature seemed to notice something else and hurried off down the opposite passage. Seizing the chance, they quickly got up and ran toward the other end of the tunnel. Before long, they noticed the passage narrowing, forcing them to crouch and crawl. After crawling for a while, a faint light appeared ahead. Kate thought they had finally found the exit, but when they finally crawled there,
We out?
they realized it wasn't an exit at all. Seeing a flashlight lying on the ground, both Kate and Mark froze. How could there be a flashlight here? But now was not the time to dwell on it. Kate picked it up and decided to continue exploring forward. But as she turned the flashlight toward the left side of the tunnel, she was startled to see a man lying there. His lower body was trapped under fallen debris, suggesting that there were more tunnels beneath the ground. Kate came to his side and found his breathing faint. He wasn't going to make it. Searching his pockets, she found a small knife, a flashlight, and a bottle of strong liquor. Because of all the crawling earlier, Mark's wound was covered in sand, and the liquor could be used to disinfect and clean it. But just as they were about to move on, the injured man suddenly opened his eyes and grabbed Mark's leg, begging for help. Before Mark could react, another roar echoed through the tunnel. Watching the camera feed, both Mark and Kate froze in fear. Mark finally realized the monster had been following them all along, but why hadn't it attacked? Kate thought for a moment and came up with a chilling theory. She suspected these creatures didn't want to risk attacking prey that could still fight back. They only went after those too weak to resist. Realizing this, they didn't dare stop and continued crawling toward the far end of the tunnel. Suddenly, a foul, acidic stench filled the air. The sickening smell made Kate cough uncontrollably. They held their breath and pushed forward. However, just as they were about to leave the area, strange squeaking noises came from behind them. Mark thought it was the monster, but when he turned around, he saw it was just a rat. The sudden flash of claws startled both him and Kate, and they scrambled forward in panic. But just moments after crawling ahead, Mark felt something tugging on his pants. He thought it was a piece of rock sticking out, so he turned around to take a look. Before he could react, something grabbed his ankle. Hearing his scream, Kate tried to help, but before she could turn around, Mark was gone. Hearing his cries echo through the tunnel, Kate panicked. She picked up Mark's flashlight and kept crawling forward. But before she could move far, the tunnel began shaking again. In her daze, Kate heard strange noises behind her and looked back in fear. Seeing that Mark was still alive, she was both shocked and overjoyed. When the monster had dragged him away, Mark had used the small knife he found earlier to stab it, barely escaping with his life. Though alive, his leg had been pierced by the creature's tentacle. After quickly bandaging the wound, they continued crawling deeper into the tunnel. But as they reached a corner, Kate froze in despair. This section of the tunnel was blocked by a pile of fallen rocks, and just then, a roar echoed from behind. Realizing the creature was closing in, Kate kicked the debris hard and was surprised to see it shift slightly. Seizing the chance, she and Mark kicked together with all their strength. At last, a small gap opened up in the blockage. They quickly squeezed through and found buildings outside, thinking they had successfully escaped. But when Mark looked up, he realized they were inside a water tower. The only exit was above them. sealed shut with an iron grate. Kate tried to reach it, but it was too high. Mark lifted her up, hoping she could open it, but the grate was locked tight. Just as they were feeling hopeless, the sound of intense gunfire echoed from above. Looking up, Mark saw a soldier on the platform. Overjoyed, they shouted for help. The soldier told them not to panic and said he'd find a way to open the grate. Hearing that, their fear finally eased. But before help could arrive, disaster struck again. A monstrous figure appeared above the grate, leaving them frozen in shock. Before they could react, another roar echoed from the tunnel below. In a panic, Mark pulled Kate and dove into a drainage pipe. However, when they reached the end of the passage, they found only a pool with no way out. Kate wanted to turn back, but the monster had already appeared behind them. In desperation, they jumped into the pool. At the bottom, they found another drainage tunnel. Without hesitation, they crawled inside. Fortunately, the passage wasn't too long, and soon they emerged on the other side. Above the pool, they spotted a small hole. Kate peeked through and saw another tunnel above, with faint light shining through the entrance. Seeing the light, both of them were filled with hope and hurried toward it. But halfway there, a massive tentacle appeared from the tunnel ahead. They froze, holding their breath, terrified to make a sound. Luckily, the creature's back was turned. It hadn't noticed them. Finding no prey at the opening, the monster left. Carefully, Kate moved forward and discovered a downward shaft at the center of the passage. She guessed it might be the entrance to the monster's nest. Using the roots hanging from the walls, they climbed past it with great care. But just as they were about to reach the exit, Mark noticed Kate lying motionless on the ground. He thought she was just resting, but when he got closer, he realized she wasn't breathing. Looking down, he saw the ground soaked in blood. It turned out that when they passed through the pool earlier, the wound on Kate's thigh had reopened. But in her rush to escape, she hadn't noticed. Due to excessive blood loss, Kate could no longer hold on. Her sudden death caught Mark completely off guard. Worse still, her body was blocking the exit, trapping him inside. He tried to pull her aside, but the opening was too small for two people. After several attempts, he still couldn't get through. As he struggled to think of a solution, strange noises echoed from the tunnel below. When he turned back, he saw countless creatures crawling in one direction. Panic consumed him. He tried to squeeze through again, but it was no use. Then he noticed the bottle of liquor beside Kate. A bold idea flashed through his mind. He thought about pouring the alcohol on Kate's body and setting it on fire, but he soon gave up the thought, because the tunnel entrance was too small for the fire to burn. As he hesitated, his phone suddenly rang. When he checked it, he saw a message from his wife.
Mark, where are you? These things are coming from below the ground. And they're saying the daylight, it makes them grow, and they're getting bigger. We're so scared, Mark. I got your message. I've been calling you and calling you. We're in the basement. If you are hearing me right now, please come home.
It turned out that while he had fallen into the pit, Earth had been invaded by alien creatures. The monsters were massive, destroying everything in their path. His wife had taken their child and hidden in the basement, but their fate was uncertain. Mark knew he couldn't stay there any longer, but the exit was still blocked. Looking at Kate's body in the opening, he came up with a desperate plan. He set a 2-minute timer on his phone and retreated back into the tunnel. The sound of the ringing phone drew the creature's attention. When the monster grabbed Kate's body and dragged it away, Mark seized the chance, crawling past the gap toward the exit. But just as he was about to reach freedom, the creature returned, grabbing his leg to pull him back. In a frenzy, Mark grabbed the liquor bottle, pouring it all over the creature and lighting it with his lighter. As flames engulfed the monster, he crawled as fast as he could toward the exit. After several agonizing minutes, he finally emerged from the tunnel. But when he looked around, he was stunned by what he saw. The ground before him was covered with monster eggs, thousands of them stretching as far as the eye could see. As he stood frozen in horror, a thunderous roar echoed from above. It turned out that the creatures in the tunnel were only the young ones. The real monster was hundreds of meters tall, its size beyond imagination. Can Mark escape the monster's nest? And where did these creatures come from? This was the story of the 2025 sci-fi disaster thriller Scurry. It's said that the entire film was shot inside underground tunnels, and that sense of confinement is truly suffocating. The production was clearly crafted with great care. If you enjoy this kind of movie, you should definitely check out the original film. That's all for today. See you next time.